video should go faster than the others. I'm basically just going to be listing things and kind of quickly explaining. So this video and portion of the chapter is about how cultures differ, also known as cultural variations. So Hall and Hofstede were some professors and theorists who basically just kind of defined these different characteristics that all cultures seem to have, but that they vary from one end to the other. So as I go through these, you want to think about them as it's kind of like a spectrum. So there's 10 and 2 ends, and that cultures fall anywhere along that spectrum. The first one is collectivist versus individualistic cultures. So individualistic cultures are basically cultures that value personal rights, being able to speak up. They value responsibility, privacy, freedom, innovation. The book says innovation, self-expression. This is going to be a lot like America. Okay, then on the other end, there's a collectivist culture, and collectivist cultures value community, collaboration, shared interests, harmony, public good, and avoiding embarrassment. So to just give a more opposite end of the spectrum, this would be more like Asian cultures. All right, number 2, context. Low versus high context cultures. So low context, if you think about, have you ever heard the phrase, in the context of the situation? Right. So in a low context culture, it's less about the context of the situation, and people are more so expected to speak or act or react the same versus there's not so much of an influence of context on it. So you're kind of like the book says, speakers use words to convey most of their meaning. Let's see, and speakers are expected to say exactly what they mean and get to the point. So this isn't obviously exact. Like the United States would technically be a low context culture. This isn't an exact thing, but we are more so like you could still kind of gauge what someone means by what they say. High context cultures, on the other end, this is where the speaker's message is conveyed indirectly and can be accurately interpreted only by referring to unwritten cultural rules. So that's when we go back to those like tangible versus intangible rules that that societies follow or that cultures follow. And this can be like subtle things, even like nonverbal communication, all of that. So these are going to be more like American Indian, Latin American, Asian communities, where there's a lot more weight on the context. So again, when we go back to that context of the situation, in these types of cultures, the context very much matters. And remember, if you can go back to chapter 1 in your head, think like there are like 5 different types of contexts that apply here, but like the context, all these different aspects, or all these 5 different contexts, whether that's social, historical, psychological, physical, right, whatever, and then cultural. So all those 5 play a huge role in the meaning behind a person's message, and they may or may not say exactly what they mean. Okay, 3. Chronemics. This is basically just a study or how we look at time among cultures. So a monochronic culture is going to they're going to view time in small increments, and they're going to be a bit more precise. And they view it, since monochronic cultures value punctuality. Like, so I would say that America tends to lean towards monochronic. Okay, then you have polychronic, and polychronic view time as more of a continuous flow. Things are kind of like a roundabout time versus precise. So this is going to be more like I remember going to Italy. It said like online that a store would be open at a specific time. We went there and it wasn't open. We went to breakfast, came back, it still wasn't open. And then we saw this guy walking up to open it up. And that was just like a regular occurrence. It was just whenever they felt like opening, they opened. So that would be something that would be a polychronic. And then I believe 4 is uncertainty avoidance. So uncertainty avoidance is the extent to which people desire to predict what is going to happen. So in for low uncertainty cultures, they tolerate a lot of uncertainty and are less driven to control unpredictable people, relationships, events. And then high uncertainty avoidance cultures, this is going to be, let's see, They have a high need to control unpredictable people, relationships, or events. Cultures often create systems of formal rules as a way to provide more security and reduce risk. A good example of a high uncertainty culture would be someone like would be Germany. They're very strict on their rules, and like there is no like guessing on certain things. 5. Power distance is the extent to which members of a culture expect and accept that power will be either equally or unequally shared. So high power distance cultures, in these kind of cultures, unequal distribution of power is accepted by both high and low power holders, meaning that these are going to be people that have more of like a monarchy, or like one person in charge, and like a big gap between who's in charge and who says, and who doesn't. So this would not be this would be the opposite of a democracy, right? So then you have lower power distance, and that means members prefer that power be more equally distributed. I mean, that's basically what the United States is founded on, right? That we should all be able to have a voice. Now, going back to ideal and real values, we believe that all people should have a voice. We believe that everyone should be treated equal. But that's an ideal value. But we definitely have seen throughout our history that is not always the real value, or the real values that are seen. Not everyone has always had a voice. So, but hopefully, we're working towards become more actually like our ideal value than what our old real values. All right, then we have masculinity and femininity. That's 6. This is not like how much a culture is more feminine or masculine. That's not really it. This is how strongly they value traditional gender roles and distinctions. So, in masculine cultures, men and women are expected to adhere to traditional gender roles and behaviors. These cultures also value masculine roles more highly than feminine roles. So, I would say that like America is still much more a masculine culture. And then we also have very more so distinct. I could go on with that. I might actually make that maybe a discussion question for us, so I'll pause my thoughts on that. But anyway, then we look at feminine cultures, and in feminine cultures, people assume a variety of roles and are valued for doing so regardless of sex. So these might be more like Sweden, Norway, Denmark. It's more fluid. It's more like everyone. It's not necessarily so gender specific, like which roles that you play, and they are equally valued, both men and women, or the gender roles that you adhere to. They are both equally valued and supported. Okay, then we have long term versus short term. We're almost done. So long term versus short term orientation. Long term and short term deal with how a culture values patience in arriving at rewards in the future. So, short or time oriented cultures tend to value rewards in the here and now. They want quick results, they want it now, they want it fast. We could definitely say America is that, right? We have fast food, but also we get mad because our internet is slow. Right? Those are those things that would be short term oriented cultures. Then we have long-term oriented cultures, and this means that they emphasize future rewards that will be realized after slow and steady perseverance, like slow and steady wins the race kind of thing, towards achieving a mutually acceptable, they basically want to have a mutual acceptable result that pleases everybody, so they have harmony, but also they look at the long-term reward versus the short-term, like do what you need to do now so you can do what you want to do later. And so these are going to be definitely more like Asian societies. Okay, then the last one, I lost count of where we are. I think maybe 7. I don't know. But indulgence. Indulgence focuses on pleasure versus restraint. Highly indulgent cultures are driven by a value of enjoying life and having fun, whereas cultures that value restraint tend to suppress gratification. So there's indulgent. I wanted to kind of clarify that. So I guess the 2 spectrum ends would be indulgent versus restraintive or restrictive. I guess you'd say that. So that would be, how much do you put your personal enjoyment before others? An indulgent society is going to very much value, like, okay, what are my personal needs, or my personal, what's going to make me happy, versus caring about the other individual or who that might impact. Then a a culture that values restraint or is less indulgent is going to more so value the group over like what the group needs versus personal enjoyment. They're more likely to be like to restrain that aspect of themselves, meaning like say they want to go on vacation, but that would really hurt their group at work. They may not take that vacation because they would feel an obligation to be there for their partners. So that would be more of a restraintive or less indulgent society. So that's something to think about though as I close this video. Think about how like you could have these big. Remember, like we have dominant culture, so you can have all these apply to dominant culture, but they also apply to like smaller aspects or just like cultures. So like when you think about this moving forward, think about it as yes, like our dominant culture has a certain all these or I guess all these variations that apply to it, but also our cultures that we are part of. They also these variations also applying to those. So, okay, thanks so much for listening.